The crystal city of Zetha Prime glowed like a jewel against the purple sky. Tall spires reached toward the stars, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 moons that hung in the evening sky. The Zetharian people moved through their beautiful city with grace, their crystalline bodies catching and splitting the light into rainbow patterns. Captain Veltar stood on the highest tower, looking out over his peaceful world. His body was made of living crystal, clear as glass but strong as stone. Like all Zetharians, he could feel the energy that flowed through everything around him. The city hummed with gentle power, and the people lived in harmony with their world. But tonight, something was wrong. Dark shapes moved across the starfield above. Ships, hundreds of them, their hulls black as space itself. They came without warning, without any attempt at communication. The Vractor had arrived. Veltar had heard stories of the Vractor from other worlds. They were a warrior race, built for conquest. Their bodies were covered in thick scales, and their hands ended in sharp claws. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. Many peaceful worlds had fallen to their armies. The first energy beams struck the outer districts. Beautiful crystal buildings exploded into dust. The Zetharians had defenses, but they were meant to protect against natural disasters, not war. Their shields flickered and died under the savage attack. Captain called Mortel, his second in command. The defense grid is failing. We need to evacuate the population centers. Veltar watched another spire collapse, its crystal fragments scattering like tears. His people were not fighters. They were artists, scientists, builders. They had never known war because they had never wanted it. "How long do we have?" he asked. 3 days, maybe 4 if we're lucky, Mortel replied. "Their ground forces are already landing." Through the chaos, Veltar could see the Vractor ships dropping from the sky. They were ugly things, all sharp angles and weapon ports. Smoke poured from their engines as they crashed into the crystal gardens. Crushing the delicate sculptures that had taken centuries to grow, the Vractor soldiers emerged from their ships like a plague. They were twice as tall as any Zetharian, their bodies built for violence. They carried massive weapons that could punch through crystal walls. Their roars echoed across the city as they began their work of destruction. "Send the distress signal," Veltar ordered. "Contact the Galactic Defense Coalition. Tell them we need help." Mortel's crystalline face flickered with doubt. "Captain, the Coalition is on the other side of the galaxy. Even if they respond immediately, it will take them weeks to get here. And we pray they respond quickly," Veltar said. "It's our only hope." The communication center was deep underground, protected by layers of crystal and energy fields. Veltar made his way through the tunnels as explosions shook the ground above. Refugees filled the passages, their crystal bodies dim with fear. Children pressed against their parents, their young faces reflecting the terror around them. The elderly helped each other walk, their steps slow but determined. These people had never known violence. Now their world was ending. At the communication center, Tekover was already working at the controls. Her hands moved over the crystal panels, sending energy through the long-range transmitter. "The signal is ready, Captain," she said, "but the Vractor are jamming our regular channels. We'll have to boost the power and send it on all frequencies." "Do it," Veltar said. The transmitter hummed to life, its crystal core glowing brighter and brighter. Energy flowed through the device, carrying their message across the vast emptiness of space. "This is Captain Veltar of Zetha Prime." His voice went out into the dark. "We are a peaceful people under attack. Our world falls within days. Any who value life and civilization, please respond. We have no weapons, no armies. We have only hope. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us." Signal raced through space at the speed of light, searching for someone, anyone, who might answer their call. It passed by empty systems and dead worlds. It traveled through asteroid fields and nebulae, carrying the desperate plea of a dying world, far away. In the Outer Rim territories, the human exploration ship U.S. Ranger was mapping a star system that had never been visited before. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the main view screen. He was a tough man in his 40s, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that came from years of making hard, decisions. Anything interesting on the sensors, Amy? He asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Amy Foster looked up from her console. She was young and sharp, with quick reflexes and a mind that could process information faster than most computers. Just rocks and gas, Captain. This system's dead as a doornail. Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez wiped his hands on a rag as he climbed up from the engine room. He was a stocky man, with calloused hands and a face that was always smiling. Engines are running. Smooth, Captain. You could keep going for another month if you want. Morrison nodded. The Ranger was a good ship, built for long journeys into unknown space. Her crew of 37 had been together for 2 years, mapping the edge of human territory. They were explorers, not soldiers, but they were tough and resourceful. Sir, called Communications Officer Pete Williams from his station. I'm picking up something strange. It's a distress signal, but it's not from any human ship. Morrison sat up straighter. Alien. Has to be, sir. The language is completely unknown, but the universal translator is working on it. Give me a minute. The bridge fell silent as Williams worked. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware of the drama playing out in the small human ship. Got it, sir, Williams said finally. It's a plea for help. Someone's under attack and asking for assistance. Morrison stood up and walked to the communication console. Play it. The alien voice filled the bridge, strange and musical but filled with desperation. The translator converted the words into English, but the emotion came through clearly. This is Captain Veltar of Zetha Prime. We are a peaceful people under attack. Our world falls within days. Any who value life and civilization, please respond. We have no weapons, no armies. We have only hope. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. The message repeated several times, growing weaker with each transmission. Finally, it faded to static. Amy Foster looked at the star charts. Sir, if I'm reading this right, the signal came from about 3 light years away. We could be there in 6 hours. Morrison stared at the view screen, thinking, humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. They had met a few alien species, but most contact had been limited to brief encounters and trade agreements. This was different. This was a cry for help from strangers in the dark. Sir, Amy prompted. Morrison made his decision. Set course for the source. Of that signal, maximum warp. Sir, we don't know anything about these people or who's attacking them, Amy said. It could be dangerous. Morrison smiled grimly. That's what makes it interesting. Besides, someone's in trouble, and we're close enough to help. Ben Rodriguez grinned. I'll get the engines ready, Captain. The Rangers never backed down from a fight. As the ship turned toward the distant star system, Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to walk into something bigger than a simple rescue mission. But that was a problem for later. Right now, someone needed help, and that was all that mattered. The UES Ranger jumped to warp speed, racing through the darkness toward Zetha Prime. Behind them, Earth continued its orbit around the sun, unaware that its children were about to make first contact with a galaxy that had never heard of humans before, in the depths of space. The message from Zetha Prime continued to echo, growing weaker and weaker until it was lost in the cosmic background. Radiation. But it had served its purpose. Help was coming, though not from the source anyone expected. The Deathworlders were on their way. The EU's Ranger dropped out of warp at the edge of the Zetha Prime system. What Captain Jake Morrison saw on the view screen made his jaw tighten. The beautiful world he had imagined from the desperate voice was under siege. Smoke rose from a dozen cities on the planet's surface. The elegant crystal spires that had once reached toward the stars now lay broken and scattered. Fires burned in the crystal forests, turning the rainbow light into angry red and orange flames. My God, whispered Amy Foster from her tactical station. Look at those ships. The Vractor fleet hung in orbit around Zetha Prime like black vultures. Their ships were massive, built for war and intimidation. Each one was twice the size of the Ranger, their hulls covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Morrison counted 50 of them, all focused on the dying world below. "They're not even trying to hide," said Ben Rodriguez, his usual smile replaced by a grim expression. "They want everyone to see what they're doing," Morrison nodded. "The Vractor weren't just conquering Zetha Prime, they were making an example of it." The message was clear to anyone watching. "This is what happens when you resist us." "Duck," called Pete Williams from communications. "I'm picking up scattered transmissions from the surface. Most of the planet's communication network is down, but there are still some signals coming through." "Can you reach their leader?" Morrison asked. "Working on it, sir. There's a lot of interference from the jamming fields." Morrison watched the tactical display as Amy analyzed the enemy fleet. Each Vractor ship was heavily armed and shielded. Their formation was tight and professional. These weren't pirates or raiders. They were a proper military force. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "we're seriously outgunned here. Those ships have enough firepower to turn us into scrap metal in about 30 seconds. Morrison studied the display. She was right. Ranger was a good ship, but she was built for exploration, not war. Her shields were strong enough to handle asteroid impacts and solar flares, but not military-grade weapons. Her weapons were designed for clearing debris and self-defense, not ship-to-ship combat. "Sir, I've got someone," Williams announced. "It's weak, but I can put it through. Do it." The view screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. Morrison had seen pictures of other alien species, but this was his first real conversation with one. The being was made of what looked like living crystal, his features sharp and angular. His eyes glowed with a soft blue light that was dim with exhaustion. "This is Captain Veltar of Zetha Prime," the alien said. His voice was musical, but heavy with despair. "Are you the rescue force from the Coalition?" Morrison felt a stab of disappointment in the alien's voice. "No, sir. We're humans. We picked up your distress signal and came to help." Veltar's crystalline face showed confusion. "Humans? I do not know this species." "Are you part of the Coalition fleet?" "We're not part of any fleet," Morrison said. "We're explorers. We heard your call for help and came as fast as we could." The alien's glow dimmed further. "You are ... alone. One ship." "That's right. One ship. 37 crew members." "What's your situation down there?" Morrison could see the calculations running through the alien's mind. One ship against 50. 37 people against thousands of enemy soldiers. The math was not encouraging. "The Vractor have been attacking for 2 days," Veltar said. "Finally. They have 50 ships in orbit and 10,000 soldiers on the ground. Our defenses have fallen. We are hiding in the deep tunnels beneath the capital city. We estimate we have perhaps 1 day before they break through our last barriers." Amy looked at Morrison with concern. The captain could see the same thought in her eyes that was running through his own mind. They were completely outnumbered. The smart thing to do would be to leave immediately and try to contact the PS authorities. But Morrison had not become a starship captain by always doing the smart thing. "Tell me about these Vractor," he said. "How do they fight?" Veltar looked. Surprised by the question, "They are warriors. They use overwhelming force and fear to break their enemies. They have superior weapons and armor. Their ships are built for conquest. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They take what they want and destroy what they cannot use." Morrison nodded. "What about you? What are your people like?" "We are peaceful," Veltar said. "We build, we create, we study. We've never known war. We have no weapons beyond basic defensive systems. We are not fighters. How many survivors do you have?" "Perhaps 50,000 in the tunnels beneath the capital. There may be more scattered across the planet, but we have lost contact with most of our cities." Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for his decision. He could see the doubt in their eyes, but also the determination. They were explorers, scientists, and engineers. But they were also human. "Captain Veltar," Morrison said, "we're going to help you." The alien's glow flickered with surprise. "You cannot be serious. You're 1 ship against 50. It is impossible." Morrison smiled grimly. "Where we come from, impossible just means no one's been creative enough yet." Can you give us detailed information about the Vractor positions? I can try, but I do not understand how this information will help you. Let us worry about that. Right now, we need to know everything you can tell us about your enemies. For the next hour, Veltar shared everything he knew about the Vractor. Their ships moved in rigid formations. Our ground forces followed predictable patterns. They relied on fear and intimidation rather than clever tactics. They were powerful, but they were also predictable. Morrison listened carefully, making notes. Amy worked on tactical analyses while Ben studied the enemy ship designs. Pete monitored their communications, trying to learn their language patterns. They're not very creative, Amy observed. Look at this formation. It's textbook orbital blockade, but they're not adapting to local conditions. They're treating this like every other conquest. That's their weakness, Morrison said. They're used to fighting civilized species who follow the rules of war. They expect honor and fair play. Ben laughed harshly. Well, they're about to learn that humans don't always play fair. Duh. Morrison turned back to the view screen. Veltar was still there, watching them with those glowing crystal eyes. Captain Veltar, I need you to do something for me. Gather your people and prepare them for a fight. We're not warriors, Veltar protested. We do not know how to. Fight. Then we'll teach you, Morrison said. We're going to even the odds a little. I do not understand. How can you possibly fight 50 ships with one? Morrison's smile was cold and sharp. We're going to show you something about humans, Captain. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We learned to survive by being smarter, tougher, and more stubborn than anything that wanted to eat us. I stood up from his command chair. Amy, I want you to study those ship formations. Find me their weak points. Ben, start working on some modifications to our weapon systems. Pete, monitor their communications. I want to know everything they're saying, sir, Amy said carefully. What's the plan? Morrison looked out at the Vractor fleet. The plan is simple. We're going to make them afraid. Afraid of us? Veltar asked from the view screen. That's right, Morrison said. You're used to being the scariest thing in the room. Time to introduce them to humans. Ben Rodriguez was already heading for the engine room. I'll get started on those modifications, Captain. It's going to be interesting. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Morrison remained on the bridge, staring at the enemy fleet. 50 ships against one. 10,000 soldiers against 37. The odds were impossible, but Morrison had learned long ago that impossible was just another word for challenging. And humans had always been good at meeting challenges. The battle for Zetha Prime was about to begin. The first attack came at dawn on Zetha Prime. Amy Foster sat in the pilot's seat of the UES Ranger. Her hands steady on the controls as she guided the ship through the asteroid field that ringed the outer system. Behind her, Captain Morrison watched the tactical display with intense focus. Remember, Morrison said quietly, "We're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive long enough to cause some damage." Amy nodded. The plan was simple but dangerous. Instead of engaging the Vractor fleet directly, they would use the asteroids as cover and strike fast before disappearing. It was guerrilla warfare in space, something the Vractor had never encountered before. Target locked, Amy reported. One of their patrol ships, separated from the main fleet. The Vractor ship was massive compared to the Ranger, but it was alone. Its crew probably thought they were safe, patrolling the edge of their territory while the main fleet finished, destroying the planet below. Fire, Morrison ordered. The Ranger's modified weapons struck the enemy ship from behind. Ben Rodriguez had worked all night to boost their power, channeling energy from the life support systems into the weapon arrays. The attack punched through the Vractor shields and tore a hole in their hull. Before the enemy could react, Amy had already spun the Ranger around and disappeared behind a large asteroid. The Vractor ship tried to follow, but it was too slow and too big to navigate the rocky maze. Direct hit, Amy reported with satisfaction. Their engines are damaged. They're not going anywhere. Morrison smiled grimly. 1 down, 49 to go. The attack had been noticed. Across the system, the Vractor fleet was stirring like an angry nest of insects. Ships began moving toward the asteroid field, their sensors sweeping for the small human vessel. "They're coming," Amy said. "Looks like about 10 ships heading our way." "Good," Morrison said. "Let them come." "Pete, are you ready with the communications?" Pete Williams nodded from his station. "Ready, sir. The message is prepared." Morrison had realized something important about the Vractor. They were warriors, but they were also predictable. They followed patterns, expected certain responses. They had never faced an enemy that refused to play by the rules. "Send it," Morrison ordered. The message went out on all frequencies, directed at the approaching Vractor ships. It was simple and direct, translated into their language by the ship's computer. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship UES Ranger. You are attacking innocent people. Leave this system immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly. A harsh, growling voice filled the bridge, speaking in heavily accented English. "Human ship, you are outnumbered 50-1. Surrender now, and we will make your death quick." Morrison keyed the communication system. Counteroffer. "Leave now, and we won't make you regret staying." There was a long pause. Then the Vractor voice came back, filled with what sounded like laughter. "You amuse us, human. We will enjoy hunting you through these rocks." "Good luck with that," Morrison said, and cut the transmission. The Vractor ships entered the asteroid field in a tight formation, their sensors probing for the small human vessel. They moved slowly, carefully, trying to avoid the floating rocks while searching for their prey. Amy watched them from her hiding spot behind a massive asteroid. "They're being cautious," she observed. "They don't want to damage their ships on the rocks. That's their mistake," Morrison said. "They're treating this like a normal battle, but we're not normal." He activated the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to show these bullies what happens when they pick. On the wrong species, hold on tight." Amy's hands flew over the controls as she brought the Ranger out of hiding. But instead of running away from the Vractor ships, she flew directly toward them at maximum speed. The enemy formation scattered in confusion. They had expected the human ship to run or hide, not charge straight at them. Their heavy weapons were too slow to track the small, fast-moving target. The Ranger flew between 2 Vractor ships, so close that Amy could see the surprised faces of their crews through the viewports. As she passed, Ben Rodriguez triggered another of his modifications. The ship's deflector array sent out a pulse of energy that overloaded the electronics on both enemy vessels. 2 more down, Amy reported as the Vractor ships drifted helplessly. Their systems fried, but the other ships were adapting. They spread out, trying to surround the small human vessel. Their weapons began to fire, filling the space around the Ranger with deadly energy beams. Amy flew like a woman possessed, threading the needle between asteroids and energy blasts. She used the rocks as shields, ducking behind them when the weapons fire got too close. Vractor ships tried to follow, but their larger size worked against them. "They're getting frustrated," Pete reported, listening to their communications. "Their commander is ordering them to forget about the asteroids and just blow everything up." "That's what we're counting on," Morrison said. The Vractor ships opened fire with their heavy weapons, not caring about the asteroids anymore. The ancient rocks exploded into fragments, filling the space with debris, but the destruction worked in the Ranger's favor. Amy used the chaos as cover, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Meanwhile, on the surface of Zetha Prime, something else was happening. Morrison had sent a team down to the planet in a small shuttle led by Sergeant Lisa Parker. She was a tough woman in her 30s, with short dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. Before joining the exploration service, she had been a soldier. Trained in special operations, Lisa's team consisted of Dr. Paul Martinez, the ship's medical officer who had volunteered for ground duty, and 2 engineers, Carl Brown and Nina Wells. They were not soldiers. They were resourceful and brave. The shuttle landed in the ruins of a crystal city, its buildings shattered by Vractor bombardment. The beauty of the place was heartbreaking. Delicate spires that had taken centuries to grow lay broken like fallen trees. Art that had been created by artists long dead was now dust and rubble. "This is wrong," Paul Martinez said quietly. This is just wrong. Lisa nodded grimly. That's why we're here, to make it right. They made their way through the ruins to the underground tunnels where the Zetherian survivors were hiding. The crystal beings huddled in the depths, their glow dim with fear and despair. When the humans arrived, they stared in wonder at these strange new beings. Captain Veltar greeted them at the entrance to the main cavern. You are the humans from the ship above. But how did you get past the Vrector? We didn't go past them, Lisa said. We went through them. Is there somewhere we can talk? Veltar led them to a small chamber where the Zetherian leaders had gathered. They were all elderly, their crystal bodies worn smooth by centuries of life. They looked at the humans with curiosity and hope. Your ship fights alone against 50 enemies, said one of the elders. This is madness. Maybe, Lisa said. But sometimes madness is the only thing that works. We need to talk about your people. Can they fight? The elders looked shocked. Fight. We are not warriors. We are builders, artists, scientists. We have never known violence. Then it's time to learn, Lisa said bluntly. 'Cause sitting in these tunnels waiting to die isn't going to save your world. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. We're not asking you to become killers. We're asking you to become survivors. There's a difference. One of the younger Zetherians spoke up. What would you have us do? We have no weapons, no training. Lisa smiled. You have something better. You have this planet. You know every tunnel, every cavern, every hidden place. And you have abilities we don't have. You can manipulate energy, grow crystal structures, communicate through crystalline networks. She looked around the chamber. The Vrector are used to fighting armies in open battle. They don't know how to fight ghosts. They don't know how to fight a planet that fights back. Paul Martinez opened his medical bag and pulled out some equipment. We can teach you to make weapons from things they won't expect. Okay. Medical supplies, industrial equipment, even your own crystal technology. The Zetherians looked at each other uncertainly. The idea of fighting went against everything they believed. But the alternative was extinction. We will listen, Veltar said finally. Tell us what you need us to do. Lisa nodded. Yes. First, we need to know everything about the Vrector forces on the ground. How many, where they're located, what their patterns are. Then we start hitting them where they don't expect it. Above them, the battle in space continued. Amy Foster was still flying the Ranger through the asteroid field, but now she had help. The Vrector ships were destroying the asteroids with their heavy weapons, but the debris was becoming a weapon itself. Chunks of rock moving at high speed were just as dangerous as energy beams. They're doing our job for us, Amy reported as another Vrector ship was holed by a piece of asteroid. They're so focused on destroying everything that they're not thinking about the consequences. Morrison watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The enemy had started with 10 ships. Now they were down to 6, and those 6 were damaged and scattered. But more ships were coming from the main fleet. Time to go, he said. We've done enough damage here. Amy spun the Ranger around and headed for the outer system, disappearing into the darkness beyond the asteroid field. 3 days had passed since the humans arrived at Zetha Prime, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. Admiral Kethfa of the Galactic Defense Coalition stood in the command center of her flagship, staring at reports that made no sense. Admiral. Kethfa was an Altarian, tall and thin with blue skin and large black eyes. Her species had been part of the Coalition for over 200 years, and she had seen many battles, but she had never seen anything like this. Read me the report again. She ordered her aide, Commander Holoran. The younger officer consulted his datapad. The Vrector invasion force at Zetha Prime has lost 17 ships in the past 3 days. Ground forces report constant attacks from unknown enemies. The Vrector commander is requesting reinforcements. Admiral Kethfa frowned. 17 ships. The Zetherians have no military.
Ow.
Their defense fleet was destroyed on the first day. What could possibly be causing these losses? The reports mention a single unknown vessel, Admiral. Vrector call it a ghost ship that appears and disappears without warning. They claim it uses tactics they have never encountered before. The Admiral walked to the large viewing screen. That showed a map of the galaxy. Zetha Prime was marked in red, indicating an active conflict zone. The Coalition had received the Zetharian distress call days ago, but their response fleet was still weeks away from the system. "Have we identified this unknown vessel?" she asked. "Negative, Admiral. The Varactor descriptions are inconsistent. Some say it is very small, others claim it can become invisible. Their communications are filled with references to demons and ghosts." Admiral Kethva had fought the Varactor before. They were brutal and efficient, but they were also professional soldiers. For them to be talking about demons meant something had seriously shaken their confidence. "Prepare the fleet for early departure," she ordered. "I want to see this ghost ship for myself." Meanwhile, on Zetha Prime, the Varactor were learning what it meant to fight humans. General Thakmer stood in his command bunker, looking at reports that filled him with growing unease. He was a massive creature, even by Varactor standards, with thick scales and scars from a dozen conquered worlds. "Explain to me again how a supply convoy of 20 vehicles simply vanished." He growled at his subordinate. Colonel Drakai shifted nervously. "The convoy was traveling through the Crystal Forest on the North Continent. When they failed to report in, we sent a patrol to investigate. We found the vehicles burned and empty. No survivors, no bodies, just wreckage." General Thakmer's claws scraped against the metal table. "And the security recordings? Damaged, sir?"
Ow!
"But what we could recover shows the vehicles being attacked by the Zetharians themselves. They seem to appear from nowhere, strike quickly, and then disappear into the crystal formations." The general's eyes narrowed. "The Zetharians are peaceful. They do not fight. They barely defended themselves when we first attacked. That was before the humans arrived, sir." General Thakmer had heard the reports about the mysterious ship that had been harassing his fleet. At first, he had dismissed them as exaggerations from frightened officers, but the losses were real, and they were mounting. "What do we know about these humans?" He asked. Colonel Drakai consulted his datapad. "Very little, sir. They are unknown to our databases. The ship appears to be an exploration vessel, not a warship. But their tactics are unlike anything we have encountered." "Show me the latest." Incident. The holographic display activated, showing a recording from one of their patrol ships. The Varactor vessel was moving through an asteroid field when suddenly a much smaller ship appeared behind it. The human vessel fired several shots that disabled the patrol ship's engines, then disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. "Watch their movement pattern," Colonel Drakai said. "They do not fight like any civilized species. They attack from unexpected angles, use the environment as a weapon, and retreat before we can respond. It is as if they have no honor." General Thakmer studied the recording carefully. The human ship moved with a grace and speed that seemed impossible. Its pilot flew between asteroids that would have destroyed a larger vessel, using the rocks as shields and weapons. "They fight like predators," he said finally. "Not like warriors, but like hunters." On the surface of Zetha Prime, Lisa Parker was teaching the Zetharians lessons that no peaceful species should have to learn. In a hidden cavern beneath the ruins of their capital city, she stood before a group of young crystal beings who had volunteered to fight back against their oppressors. "Remember," she said, "the goal is not to win a fair fight. The goal is to hurt them and get away safely. Make them afraid to leave their bases. Make them jump at shadows." One of the young Zetharians, a female named Silura, raised her hand. "But this goes against everything we believe. We're supposed to create, not destroy." Lisa's expression softened. She understood their struggle. These beings had lived in peace for thousands of years. The concept of warfare was as foreign to them as their crystal technology was to humans. "You're not becoming destroyers," she said. "Gently, you're becoming protectors. There's a difference. Sometimes to protect what you love, you have to be willing to fight." Dr. Paul Martinez stepped forward, carrying a device he had built from Zetharian crystal technology and human medical equipment. "This is a sonic disruptor," he explained. "It uses your crystal resonance abilities to create sound waves that will disable Varactor equipment. It won't kill them, but it will stop them." The Zetharians examined the device with interest. Their natural ability to manipulate crystal formations made them surprisingly good at using the hybrid technology that Paul had created. "The important thing," Lisa continued, is to hit them where they don't expect it. Supply lines, communication relays, isolated outposts. Make them spread their forces thin, trying to protect everything. Nina Wells, one of the engineers from the Ranger, had been working with the Zetharians to map the tunnel systems beneath their cities. These passages connect most of the major population centers, she explained, pointing to a holographic map. You can move unseen across the entire continent. Carl Brown nodded. The crystal formations conduct energy and communication signals. You can coordinate attacks across vast distances without the Vractor being able to intercept your messages. Plan was working better than anyone had hoped. The Zetharians were natural guerrilla fighters once they learned the basics. Their ability to communicate through crystal networks, to grow barriers and weapons from the planet itself, and to move through hidden passages made them nearly impossible to track above them. In space, Amy Foster was planning the next phase of the campaign. The U.S. Ranger hung motionless in the shadow of Zetha Prime's largest moon, hidden from the Vractor sensors. The convoy will pass through this sector in 6 hours, she told Captain Morrison, pointing to the tactical display. 20 supply ships with a light escort. If we hit them here, we can disappear into the moon's magnetic field before they can respond. Morrison studied the plan. Each successful attack made the next one more dangerous. The Vractor were adapting, sending larger escorts and changing their routes. But they were also becoming more cautious, which meant they were starting to fear the humans. Do it, he said. But be ready to run if things go bad. Ben Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station. Captain, I've been monitoring their communications. They're requesting reinforcements from their home fleet. Morrison frowned. How many? At least another 50 ships, maybe more. They're scared, sir. Really scared? The thought should have been encouraging, but Morrison knew what it really meant. The Vractor were bringing enough force to overwhelm any resistance. When those reinforcements arrived, the small human crew would be facing impossible odds. How long until they get here? He asked. 4 days? Maybe 5. Morrison looked at the tactical display, thinking hard. For days to somehow defeat or drive off a force that was already 10 times larger than anything they could handle. The math was getting worse by the hour.
Sir.
Amy said quietly, there's something else. I've been picking up long-range sensor readings. There are other ships heading this way? Not Vractor. Something else. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Coalition? Maybe. The energy signatures are different from anything in our database? Pete Williams looked up from his communications station. Sir, I'm getting a transmission. It's on Coalition frequencies, but it's heavily encrypted. Can you decode it? It's working on it, sir. It's going to take some time. Morrison nodded. The galaxy was taking notice of what was happening at Zetha Prime. The question was whether that notice would bring help or just more enemies. On the surface, the Zetharian resistance was growing stronger every day. What had started as a few dozen volunteers had grown into a network of hundreds. They struck at Vractor supply lines, sabotaged equipment, and rescued civilians from occupied territories. The crystal beings were discovering something they had never known about themselves. When pushed to the edge of extinction, when their families and their world were threatened, they could fight. Not with the brutal efficiency of the Vractor, but with the clever determination of people defending their home. General Thokmer was beginning to realize that he had made a serious mistake. What should have been a simple conquest had turned into a nightmare. The Vractor reinforcements arrived on the 5th day, but they found a very different situation than they expected. General Thokmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching 50 new warships take position around Zetha Prime. He should have felt confident with 100 ships under his command, but instead, he felt only unease. Report, he ordered his intelligence officer. Sir, we have lost 23 ships to the human vessel. Supply lines are under constant attack. Morale is at critical levels. Thokmer's scaled fists clenched. In his entire military career, he had never faced a situation like this. The humans had done something that should have been impossible. They had taken a peaceful species and turned them into effective fighters in just a few days. Where is this human ship now? He asked. Unknown, sir. They disappeared into the outer system 2 hours ago. Our scouts cannot locate them. Study the tactical display. 100 ships should be enough to destroy any enemy, but the humans refused to fight a conventional battle. They struck like lightning and vanished like smoke, always where he least expected them. A communication. Alert sounded. Sir, incoming transmission. It's from the human ship. Put it through. The view screen flickered, and Captain Jake Morrison appeared. The human looked tired but determined. Behind him, General Thakmer could see the bridge of the small exploration, a vessel that had caused so much trouble. General Thakmer, Morrison said, I believe it's time we talked. The general's eyes narrowed. You wish to surrender? Warrior, uncomfortable. I want to offer you a deal. The bridge fell silent. Several Veraktor officers growled in anger at the human's audacity. One small ship was threatening 100 ship. Fleet, you are either very brave or very foolish. Human, General Thakmer said. I have 100 ships. You have 1. That's true, Morrison admitted. But in the past 5 days, you've lost almost a quarter of your original fleet to that one ship. How many more ships are you willing to lose? Anger rising. We will hunt you down and destroy you. There is nowhere in this system you can hide. Maybe, Morrison said. This isn't just about one ship anymore. If on cue, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Lots of ships, sir, called the sensor operator. I'm reading 30 vessels. Coalition markings. Admiral Kethva's fleet had arrived. Morrison's smile widened. The galaxy is watching. General, and they're very interested in meeting the species that taught the Zetharians how to fight back. The Coalition fleet took position between the Veraktor forces and Zetha Prime. Admiral Kethva's flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Veraktor warship, opened a communication channel. This is Admiral Kethva of the Galactic Defense Coalition. General Thakmer, you are ordered to withdraw your forces immediately. General Thakmar's rage boiled over. You have no authority here, Admiral. This is a legitimate conquest. Attacking peaceful worlds is not legitimate under Coalition law, Admiral Kethva replied calmly. We are very interested in speaking with the humans who have so effectively assisted in the defense of Zetha Prime. Morrison cut into the conversation. We accept your offer of protection for the Zetharian people. Captain Morrison, Admiral Kethva said. The Coalition would very much like to discuss establishing formal relations with your species. General Thakmer realized that the situation had spiraled completely out of his control. What should have been a simple conquest had become a diplomatic incident involving the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy. This is not over, he growled. Morrison's expression turned cold. Yes, it is, and I'll tell you why. You came here expecting to find the same kind of peaceful species you've been bullying for years. Instead, you found something different. Found humans. The human captain leaned forward. General, your people are warriors. You respect strength and fear weakness. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and predators that would give your nightmares. General Thakmer found himself listening despite his anger. There was something in the human's voice that commanded attention. We learned to be tough because we had to be, Morrison continued. We learned to protect each other because that's the only way we survived. We learned that sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to hit back harder than they hit you. The human's eyes were hard as steel. Do you want to know what we are, General? We're the species that never learned when to quit. We're the ones who turn impossible odds into personal challenges. We're the people who hear you can't do that and say, watch me. Morrison gestured toward the planet below. We turned your easy conquest into a nightmare, and we did it with 1 ship and 37 people. The bridge was silent. Even the Veraktor officers were staring at the human with something approaching respect. So here's what's going to happen, Morrison said. You're going to take your fleet and leave. You're going to tell every Veraktor in the galaxy what happened here. You're going to spread the word that there's a new species in the galaxy, and we don't like bullies. General Thakmer felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Fear, not of dying in battle, but of the implications of what he had encountered. The humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were something entirely different. "What are you?" he asked quietly. Morrison's smile was fierce and proud. "We're humans, General. We're the species that teaches others how to fight back. And now, the galaxy knows we exist." The communication ended, leaving General Thokmer staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers waited for orders. The Coalition fleet remained in position, their weapons powered but not aimed.
The human
ship was somewhere in the system, invisible but present. "Sir," second-in-command asked carefully. General Thakmer looked at the tactical display one more time. 100 ships against one should have been an easy victory. Instead, it had become a lesson in humility. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "We're withdrawing. Send a message to High Command. Tell them we have encountered a new species. Tell them the humans are not to be underestimated." The Vractor fleet began to withdraw from Zetha Prime. As they departed, General Thakamar issued one final communication to his forces. "Let this be known throughout the galaxy," he said. "Do not engage the Deathworlders. They do not fight wars. They solve problems, and they will make you the problem." On the surface of Zetha Prime, the Zetharian people emerged from their hiding places to see their world free once again. The crystal spires lay in ruins, but they could be rebuilt. The important thing was that they would have the chance to rebuild. Captain Veltar stood in the ruins of his capital city, watching human and coalition personnel working together to coordinate relief efforts. The young Zetharians, who had learned to fight, were already talking about forming a permanent defense force. "Captain Morrison," Veltar said when the human approached, "why did your people help us? You gained nothing from it." Morrison looked out over the damaged but free world. "Where we come from, Captain, we have a saying. All that is necessary. For evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Someone needed help, and we were close enough to do something about it." Admiral Kethfa joined them, her tall blue form towering over the humans and Zetharians. "Captain Morrison, the Coalition formally invites humanity to join our alliance. Not as junior members, but as full partners. Your species has shown qualities we have never encountered before." Morrison nodded. "We'll need to contact Earth and discuss it with our government, but I think they'll be interested." "There is one more thing," Admiral Kethfa said. "The Coalition would like to request human advisors for our military forces. The tactics you employed here could revolutionize peacekeeping operations across the galaxy." Morrison grinned. "I think we can arrange that." As the UES Ranger prepared to depart Zetha Prime, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge one last time. Looking down at the world they had helped save, the Zetharians were already beginning to rebuild, but now they did so with the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. Amy. Foster brought the ship around toward the jump point that would take them back to human space. "In, Captain. Ready to go home." Morrison nodded. "Take us out, Lieutenant." As the Ranger jumped to hyperspace, leaving Zetha Prime and its new Coalition protectors behind, Morrison reflected on what they had accomplished. They had saved a world, made first contact with a galactic civilization, and established humanity's reputation as protectors of the innocent. But most importantly, they had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before. They had shown that sometimes the most unlikely heroes are the ones who make the biggest difference.